Welcome to Noon Hour Slides from the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery. We're located on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Blackfoot, Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We pay our respects to First Nations and Métis ancestors and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We gratefully acknowledge funding from the City of Moose Jaw, SaskArts, SaskCulture, Saskatchewan Lotteries, Canada Council for the Arts, Canadian Heritage, and the Government of Canada. I'm Vincent Hotelling, the administrative assistant here, and I'm here to welcome you to today's presentation. Gayle Jones is here to talk to us about a trip to Spain in 2019. Welcome.
Hi. Well, thanks, Victor. Glad to see you're all here. It's such a terrible day. I've only done my slides twice, and both times I've done it, seems to me some blizzard happens or a snow event. But anyway, just as a start off here, I've been to Spain 3 times, but the first time I went was in 1973. And my childhood buddy and still best buddy, Beverly Montague, and I, after our first year of teaching, we put on our best blue jeans, had a backpack on our back with the Canada flag on it. We had our Eurail passes in our hand. We're off for 6 weeks to Europe, and boy, the stories we have to tell, very few pictures, and we still reminisce about what great, strange adventures, and how we got out of some of these is just beyond me, but whatever. We spent some time in Europe before we went to Spain. Things were always, culturally different and whatever, but they were modern countries. Things ran on time, pretty modern place. And then we crossed the border into Spain. And at that time, General Franco was still in power, terrible dictator, got into power in the 30s, the Spanish Civil War, with help from Hitler and Mussolini, which tells you what kind of person he was, and that's just another story. But it was like going back 30 years by crossing that border. Nothing worked well. It was almost like everything was tired. The buildings were tired. The people were tired. Coming from the energy in Europe, and then you come to Spain, and it's slow. And when I say the trains didn't run on time, it wasn't like they were an hour late. They're like 8 hours late. And anyway, the people were lovely. All the ladies wore black. And for years, it took me ages to get over. When I saw black, I thought of all those old Spanish ladies. And I says, well, I'm not wearing black. I look like an old Spanish lady. So I'm wearing black today in memory of my old Spanish ladies. But anyway, it was a different time. Just the tourism was just starting up. Torremolinos was very famous on the Costa del Sol. It had just started up. It had a lot of hotels. We were up the beach from Torremolinos in what's called Marbella. I know they had one large hotel because we spent one night sleeping on the Chesterfield in the lobby, because the night clerk was nice enough, because we'd come in on a train at 2 in the morning and didn't know what to do, so he gave us a place to stay. But anyway, this is Marbella. This is where we stayed when we first went to Spain in '73. Now, these are really nice little old houses. And we had a lovely Spanish landlady. I believe the second house with the flowers down was ours. We had a bedroom similar to the first window on the main floor. And I remember sleeping in our bed one day, and all of a sudden the windows open and some old man from down the streets yelling, "Good morning, ladies," in our window. And we just about had a fit. Says, who the heck is this guy? But anyway, they were friendly people, even though they were very weary. And this is our lovely little street. Here's the man that comes by to pick up the bottles every day. And here we had a rest and relaxation. Here's Bev hanging up our clothes. Our landlady let us wash and dry all our clothes, and our blue jeans dried very fast in the heat. Our landlady, all she ever did, all I ever see her do is wash sheets. And And I don't know what she ever did with those sheets, but they certainly weren't on our bed. But anyway, tourism, like I said, was just starting up. My brother had stayed a year or two later in Torremolinos. I was talking to Marla Searcy, and she was saying the same year that we were there, she and her family went to Torremolinos, but they stayed in a large hotel. So tourism was just starting. After we left, Franco died in 76. Spain joined the European Union. Money flows in. And now when we went back this time, there was energy. People had energy. People were well-dressed. Trains ran on time. It was such a change. It was like night and day between the two times. When I did my Portugal slides, we came through Salamanca, and that's where we left, Salamanca Avia, on our way to Madrid. So this picks up that same trip and does Madrid and Toledo. And then we took a train down to Cordoba and Granada. And then I've got a couple listed in blue, circled in blue in the upper right-hand corner, Barcelona and Girona. That's where I stayed when I went the third time, which was, I just got out before COVID hit Spain. So this is one of the many beautiful buildings in Madrid. And that's just a taste of some of the architecture and you see, it's not tired, it's not weary, it's been cleaned up, there's action here, there's energy. It's a wonderful country with lots of tourism now. Noreen always likes to get us into the heart of the action, and here we are, we're one block ahead of the main square of town, the Puerto del Sol, which is one of the entrances to one of the main gates to the old city of Madrid. The building straight in front of us is actually General Franco's secret police headquarters. And Franco, according to one source that I had killed more of his countrymen than Stalin did during his day. He would massacre and have mass graves for whole villages. They would just disappear. Pinochet from Chile came over to get some tips from Franco before he died. This is the kind of dictator this man was. Anyway, in this main square, you can see a lot of construction. Something was going on. There was some event coming, and that's why it's all barricaded off. Now, this sign is in the pavement in front of that building for the secret police, and it shows you where Madrid is in terms of Spain. It's in the very center of Spain. And it became the capital in the 1500s because Toledo, the original capital, was too small for the area, or too many people for the small area. This is Plaza Mayor, one of the main squares as well. This was a home for bullfighting and the Spanish Inquisition trials. And again, they've got some barricading up. Something's happening and I don't know what. This was a city hall area. Look how lovely the buildings are. And then when you go through this gate, you come into the large cathedral. It's a fairly modern cathedral according to, standards, modern standards. This is an interesting kind of altar with a second level. When you come out of the church, here is the palace. It's no longer lived in by the royal family, but of course used for public events and etc. Here, the main part here that we see here is the grand staircase. We couldn't take pictures inside after this area. And look at the lovely stairs here. You notice how they don't have much of a rise between the steps. And this is so that the ladies with their long ball gowns can glide up the stairs and look beautiful. Look at that ceiling. Isn't that amazing? That's on the grand staircase. Now here's a picture of the royal family. You can tell it was taken in the late 80s, early 90s. Look at the styles. Now you think Queen Elizabeth has got problems. This is quite a royal family. The man on the right is now King, Philip V or VI, and the man in the middle, King Juan Carlos, had his troubles. In 2003, he went on an African safari and killed an elephant and got a great big picture of him with his foot on the elephant with the gun and him on top of the elephant he shot, which was bad enough, but it turned out he was actually head of the Spanish Wildlife Federation, which did not help any. And also then in 2014, he abdicated because it seems that he was taking some kickback. Anyway, there's some weird financial dealings. So he abdicated to his son. Well, now he's fled the country. He's in Abu Dhabi because he has taken kickbacks and made a lot of underhand dealings. And worst of all, he's funneled this money through his Danish mistress. So you think Queen Elizabeth's got troubles. They've got their own royal families and intrigue. Then we went and had a lovely afternoon treat at this chocolate shop that's been in business since the late 1800s. It had these deep fried donuts, these long donuts, and you dip them in this chocolate. It's like pudding, consistency of pudding, and really chocolatey, and it's wonderful. And anyway, I had lots of chocolate after the donut, and I was almost wanting to drink the rest, but you couldn't. Anyway, it's very good. And of course, off to the Prado. And this is a postcard because it gives you a better idea of what the building was like, because when we got there, this is what we saw. It was getting restored. And you notice, of course, 1819 to 2019. So it's 100 years old the year that we go and visit. It's one of the fine art galleries of of the world, like the Louvre and the Hermitage. It's got wonderful European art. The ones that I focused on that I thought were interesting was they had a special showing of Vala Velaquez art, the Renaissance painter from Florence. And he was at the time of the Renaissance with Donatello, and at the time where the Duomo was being built. And at the time he was at with all the Renaissance painter, it's funny that he wasn't taken as one of the Ninja Turtles, but Angelico isn't one of them. This picture, the Annunciation, I'd seen it before, but when I saw it, it's one of those paintings that you look at and says, oh my gosh, this is a good art. And anyway, it really struck me, and as some paintings do, and this Annunciation was one of them. The other painter that I didn't know about is Vala Velaquez, and he was a portrait painter when Spain was at the height of its power and extremely rich. So he could have been one of the few painters that have made a lot of money in his lifetime. And this is one of the portraits he painted of a crown princess in the front. And what a lovely little girl he has painted there. There were a lot of other wonderful arts, El Greco's, and anyway, lovely paintings. So El Prado is not to be missed, not to be missed. Then we took a train to Toledo. It's about half an hour, 3/4 an hour out of Madrid. It was the former capital of Spain before Madrid. So of course it has a lot of wonderful buildings. Look at this train station. Isn't this a grand building? And of course, there it is, the big sign with the city behind it. This is the castle up here on the right. There's also a fortress on the other side of this river as well. The cathedral is a wonderful cathedral. This is a medieval city. They still have a lot of wonderfully old buildings. I love this altarpiece. It's got of course all the gold, but in it are all these different pictures from the Bible. So here's one Bible story, of course, the birth of Christ and the three magi. This next one is quite funny. This is of the ascension, Christ's ascension into heaven. And there you just see his feet. And it reminds me of maybe it's Santa Claus going up the chimney. I thought that was kind of a funny depiction of the Bible story. And look at all the detail in here. This is going up into the dome, and you can notice all the figures there. It's just a fine picture of craftsmanship at that time, hey? Of course, El Greco, they were everywhere in Toledo. This was his time. I didn't know anything about El Greco, I heard the name. But I can pick out an El Greco pretty good now. They all seem like elongated, emaciated faces to me, but fine art, and they're all over the place. Another thing is Toledo is famous for this Damascene art, jewelry, and they fuse together metals, silver, gold, but of course, I don't think this is gold for what I bought, but anyway, lovely earrings with silver and different metals in it. And this is a pendant I bought there as well. So, but I never saw them other places in Spain, but Toledo is where they make this, and this is where I did find them. And look at these lovely old streets. I mean, this is just quite lovely wandering in Toledo. It's a place worth going to, and the train is so efficient and gets you there so quick, and there's a number of them that go during the day. But you know, it even be a place to stay overnight in. This is actually what I thought was El Greco's house. It's advertised as El Greco's house, where he stayed when he was painting. And it is an art museum in itself and has a lot of his paintings in it. However, it turns out to be a man bought a house similar to one that El Greco would have lived in had he you know, who knows where he stayed. But anyway, so this is a look-alike. We're also big on marzipan and crafting out of marzipan. And this is a castle made out of the almond paste. Now I have trouble making gingerbread houses out of graham wafers, so these guys are quite good at their marzipan building. So then, Noreen and I, who I'm traveling with here, she and I taught together in Fernie, and we've been traveling a lot. We went south, took the train south to Cordoba, and we're going out of Madrid. You can see a lot of grain, but as you get further and further south, it gets drier and drier, and you get it more into the olive groves and sunflowers and things. Now, Cordoba and Granada is the last stronghold of the Moors in Spain. And of course, the Moors were the Muslim people that had come through North Africa and Morocco to forge a kingdom here. To put it in perspective, the Muslims had been there since 700 AD, and Isabel and Ferdinand kicked them out of Spain in 1500. So the Muslims had been there 800 years, and the Christians have only been there 500 years, which shows you it's like the difference between Quebec City and Paris. The different types of, you can't really say the Quebec people are French, and you cannot say that these people were actually of North African descent, because they had made their own culture by that time. Anyway, so we're heading south into the former Moorish area. Noreen, she's really good at getting us places to stay. And this is one she picked out, which is an extremely old inn. It's an old inn, and its claim to fame was Christopher Columbus slept here, like George Washington slept here. Who knows? But anyway, it would have been on the path he would have taken to ask Isabel and Ferdinand for money for his travels to the New World. This is the river he would have sailed his ship up to get to Cordoba to ask for money. However, over the years, of course, it's all grown in, and it's a ship could not get in there nowadays. Here's the Roman bridge in Cordoba. This is a wonderful city. Cordoba is the best of Spain as far as I'm concerned. It's got everything. It's got the Roman ruins. It's got the Muslims. It's got the Christians. And all so well done. Here's the Roman bridge with statues on it. Look at the entrance, the Roman entranceway at the end of the bridge. Here is the Alcazar, or the fortress of the Christian kings, and originally a Moorish fortress taken over by Isabel and Ferdinand And there's a statue of Ferdinand. And here's the fortress walking on the walls. Now, Isabel of Castile and Ferdinand of Aragon got married and controlled all of Spain at that point, except for the Muslim area of Granada. They stayed in Cordoba and orchestrated the takeover of Granada to kick the Moors out of Spain. So this is the fortress they took over. And they're also known for having started the Spanish Inquisition after they kicked the Moors out because they wanted it to be a Christian country. This tower is where all the archives and paperwork of the Inquisition was done. And here we are going up battlements up to the top tower. There's the Spanish royal stables. In there was also, they were showing some Roman mosaics that they'd found in a square in another part of Cordoba. Muslim baths and the air vents for the Muslim baths. These are all the gardens outside the Alcazar. And of course, they were built by the Muslims, lots of water and fountains. It's just a beautiful garden. And of course, they have a statue of Columbus asking Ferdinand and Isabella for money to go to the New World. Of course, you remember that Isabel and Ferdinand are also known, another claim to fame, that they're the in-laws of Henry VIII because their daughter married Henry VIII. Another thing is the wheel in the back is the water wheel that the Moors used to water all their gardens. And this was used up until Isabel and Ferdinand took over. And then Isabel thought it was too loud and she couldn't get to sleep. So she stopped the water wheel. So those poor people that were looking after the gardens now have to run up and down with fetching water. But anyway, another story. In Cordoba and Granada, they're huge on flamenco. And in Granada, there's a statue of a flamenco dancer. And here, this is a street named after a flamenco dancer. And there's his street. Of course, we have to go see a flamenco dance. And here's one of the ladies. And they were all so good. And of course, they're stomping. And the lady in the background there in the black and white, she's what's called a flamenco singer, but it's more like a cheerleader. She's cheering them on and clapping and stomping her feet. And anyway, it was just a great evening, lots of fun. But the thing that I took away from that I didn't know about were these flamenco singers, and they're very famous in their own right. And one that people particularly like in Cordoba has his own museum. For flamenco museum. So who knew? And here, she was the lead dancer. And here's the lady in the back just giving it, cheering her on. Now, when I said Noreen liked to pick out places, location, and she wanted to be really close to the mesquite, which is the Cordoba Mosque. Well, this is our hotel on the left. So you just walk out the door and there it is. So I don't think she could have got us much closer. But it turned out that wasn't the entrance. So even though we were close, we still had to walk around. Here's one of the side entrances. You notice all the Muslim-like decorations with the arches and so on. This mesquite, and here is the original Islamic Tower where they call to pray, minaret, which is, when the Christians took over, they made it into a bell tower. Now, this mesquite is just amazing. This was the most wonderful building. I just love this building with all of its multicolored arches, and it's huge. This is absolutely huge, like 2 football fields. This place is huge. But in its day, Cordoba with the Moors was second only to Mecca in terms of its influence on the Islamic faith. from this area came a lot of Islamic scholars, well-respected scholars. And so it was called a caliphate, the Cordoba Caliphate. And anyways, it was huge in that area. Like, we discount the Moors, say, oh, they got kicked out of Spain, but this civilization was really quite interesting. They kept, like, when Europe was plunged into the Dark Ages after the fall of Rome, learning, the Greek learning was still available in the Muslim world, and it came back to Europe through the Moors, and then eventually it's dispersed to the rest of Europe. But so in the Dark Ages, this was probably the most well-educated, prosperous city in Europe. And of course, when the Christians took over, they knew what they had, what a wonderful building they had. So of course, in the middle of all the Muslim stuff, well, they built all these Christian things. And in fact, one place they've got a little statue of I think Ferdinand with his stomping on a bunch of Moors. Right? Really not too politically correct these days anyway, whatever. But look at this, isn't this just amazing? Absolutely amazing. Just to go to see this was worth going to Spain. Of course, here's a side Christian altar and some old Christian books. They had blocked off a section of the Muslim religious section. And this is, and then they've uncovered it a number of years ago, they uncovered it to show the Muslim part of the mosque. And look at all the decorations. And this is all inlaid, different kinds of stones and gold, and amazing, amazing work, amazing work. And the altar there. Of course, I don't know why I have this big pillar in the way, but you know, what the heck, the photographer wasn't very good. Another thing about Cordoba is they've got a lot of patios. In fact, they even had a little museum patios that we went to. But here's some little window boxes. It's a smaller city and it's walkable and it's relaxing. I can't say enough about Cordoba. It's also got some Roman ruins in it and a museum. And my takeaway from the museum is this gravestone. It's of a gladiator, because apparently Cordoba was the site of where they trained gladiators for Spain and the Western section. Anyway, I thought that was quite interesting. Now, here's what you see in a lot of the fast food restaurants and breakfast stops. This is a real leg of a pig. And they cut it, this woman is very good. They have a special, and they cut it extremely thin, little shaved pieces of ham. You notice the olives in the front as well. And so, yes, you could have, you know, ham with your eggs or a sandwich, and here's some sandwiches to go at another shop where they've taken the thin sliced and made little submarine sandwiches out of it. Very tasty ham, very tasty ham. The other thing about the Muslims during the Moors is they were very good with the Jews as well. They lived in harmony for many, many years here until the Christians came, of course, caused all the trouble and started the Spanish Inquisition. But this was a hotbed of Jewish culture as well. And when they got kicked out of Spain by Isabel and Ferdinand, they went into Morocco and spread along the various parts of the Mediterranean. Now, for those that have been in Morocco, there's a town called Chefchaouen. It's called the Blue City. You got a lot of blue on the walls of the city. And this is one of the places where these Jews went, was Morocco. This is a very famous Jewish scholar of the time. His name was Maimonides, and he was born in 1135, and they had the 850th anniversary of his birth at one point. But so another a fact that these religions could live side by side at one point. At night, they were having a big party. So here they are. They got the band going. They got the kayakers out on the river. We got the tomato can dancing with sardine, and everybody's out having a good time. Now, the next time we took the bus, because the buses are extremely good too, and we took the buses to Granada. And Granada was the last stop and the capital of the Moors. And of course, its claim to fame in Granada is the Alhambra, the Moorish palace. And it is beautiful. Now, talk about changes in travel. When Beverly and I went, you could walk up anywhere, just buy a ticket and go in. For the Alhambra, Noreen had to book about 8 months ahead of time to get us a ticket to get in there. And then the tickets were hard to get, and we had to get what we got. But there was a ticket left over for us in May. And this was late May that we were here. This is a postcard just because it's so big, you can't take in all the views. Now this picture, we're across the gorge. There's a big gorge between the old Arab section and the Alhambra. There's a big gorge down there, and we're on the other side of the gorge. And this is the old Moorish section where I'm taking these pictures from. And of course, in the background are the mountains. They're not the Pyrenees. These are called the Sierras. And this is part of the old Moorish area with the cobblestone streets and lovely area just to wander around. And you get good views of the city from up here. One day we took a bus and we wanted to go into the mountains, and we found this little town, Langeron. Now I said Langeron, but we go to the bus depot and it wasn't showing on any of the signs because it would be like getting off at Morse on your way to Swift Current, and it isn't listed on, it stops, but it's not listed on the gates. So I went up to the tourism lady. I said, well, where does the bus to Langeron go? She said, we don't have a place called Langeron. Langeron? No. And then she called me back. She said, do you mean La Haron? And I said, oh, sure, that must be it. La Haron. Anyway, we didn't get on the bus only because we tourists can't even pronounce it right. But anyway, it was a little mountain town, and its claim to fame is the water that comes out of there is in this, all the bottled water in Spain is usually La Haron water. And it's also, this isn't your eyes, it's just a little out of focus. It's also a spa town like Moose Jaw is. And for one of their ways to make money, I guess, is there a water fight is a celebration, and you buy tickets and you can shoot at each other water. So anyway, so perhaps Tours in Moose Jaw should get on this. Their spa, this is their spa. And I thought, oh, well, let's go in and we can look at the spa. That's like you can at Temple Gardens. Noreen didn't want to go in. I said, oh no, come on in, we'll go in there. Well, of course, they took one look at us, and if we didn't want to pay $300, we got pushed out of that place pretty darn fast. But anyway, the spa town is a pretty little town. Lots of trees. It's up in the mountains. It's nice and cool. In the summer, it would be great. And but there's nobody here. And the problem is we didn't read our books because apparently this was the day it all shut down. And we were lucky to find someplace open that would give us lunch. But what a beautiful little town. I mean, this was really worth a day trip to get here. And of course, there's water fountains all over town. And oh, this is so healthy. I don't know if it is or not, but we didn't die. So anyway, we all had to have a drink of water out of all the fountains along the streets. And of course, here's the old guys. They're having their morning smoke at the city center. They're having a good time. It's like that every town, hey? Here's the modern windmills, but we did see some real old Don Quixote windmills between Madrid and Cordoba. We saw a bunch of old Don Quixote windmills. And of course, this shows you how dry the area is with all the olive trees. And of course, at night, they have the Paseo with all the people out in the main streets doing their wandering around, getting cool before they go and eat supper with all their families. And we ate at this one place. It was a bullfighting cafe. All along the walls were all pictures of bullfighters and advertisements. And But I guess bullfighting is getting a little bit less popular. The younger people don't want to do it anymore, and of course the activists are out. So it's becoming a dying art. There are a few bullfighting areas around, but not much. So we quite like this place because the guy gave us 2 free brandies at the end of our supper. So hey, isn't that a good place to go? This is a stable for, it's the end of the Silk Road, Granada, and so they needed places for the merchants to stable their horses and camels and whatever, and for a rest. So this is one of the old Moorish stops. And of course, right beside that, of course, this is where all the old business was done by the Moors in their marketplace. And of course, now it's just a tourism place with lots of souvenirs. This is the church built in the 1500s, and a wonderful church, beautiful church, as they all are. Look at the altars, and I love, look at this. This is the old choral music. Just love the old choral music. And in another chapel, another side building, is another little museum. And who is buried here is Isabel and Ferdinand are buried right here. And not only that, what have they got? How cool is this? They have Isabella's crown, scepter, and Ferdinand's sword on display. Isn't this amazing? I thoroughly thought so. This was just wonderful. Now, then at 2 o'clock, that's when our tickets were. Heat of the day, we're in the Alhambra. And there's one of the gates getting in. And the whole thing about this is this building, all of the columns, all of the walls are decorated so finely and they have lovely pools and little areas where the breeze can come through. When Isabel and Ferdinand got here, they were going to destroy it. And then they realized what they had. They had this absolutely wonderful building, and it was built to keep everything cool in the summer. So when they discovered what they had, of course, then that was it. The demolition was stopped, and they got to enjoy it. But, different designs and sayings from the Quran decorate the walls. The more you look at all of these pictures, the more you can see of the decoration and the work that was done. Apparently, at this time in Europe, nobody else had the mathematics and the architectural skills, engineering skills to have built anything like this. This is how so far ahead that the Moors were of Europe at the time. And I'm sure who's ever been here has way more amazing pictures than I have, because I'm not that much of a good photographer. This is the Court of the Lions, and a little fountain in the middle. But just even inside each of the arches, even they're all decorated. I mean, you could take a picture of every place you pointed your camera. Now, the other thing is it got into great disrepair, and it was almost like a slum dwelling. And Washington Irving slept here. Actually, he stayed here. He was on a tour or whatever, and he stayed here, went to school or wrote here or something, probably wrote here, who knows. Anyway, he stayed here for a longer period of time, and he lived here. But what he did is he went home and realized what a wonderful building it was. It was in disrepair. And so he started raising money to fix it up to its former glory. So thanks to Washington Irving, the building has been saved. And of course, they've done his walls like they would a European wall. So the European walls like ours, are pretty bare, and we hang our own work on it, whereas in the Muslims, all the walls are decorated. And of course, here's a lovely, look at all these lovely areas. You know, you could just point and find another courtyard that's lovely and cool. And the other thing is they were ahead in medicine, so they would grow lots of herbs, medicinal herbs, and a lot of water, where, you know, people in Europe weren't even bathing then. They, you know, they would just throw a bunch of perfume in instead of having a bath. And here's the Muslims who are clean, good medicine, and all lost, all lost. Now, the other thing about Grenada that Noreen and I really liked is what we discovered is that if you stop at lunch and buy a drink, they will give you a little luncheon plate, like a little sandwich, or maybe some sausage and cheese or something like that. But anyway, so we thought this was great, and we didn't really find this in other places in Spain. La Joron have gave us one, but anyway, so we ate a couple of days off this. So dinner and supper, if you know, everybody, we each got a plate with a drink. So with a drink, you got a plate. But however, one day I got this twice. It is rice with squid ink on it, which makes it black. Now, it tasted fine. Squid ink, it was fine. And I'm sure it's extremely healthy. But after I look at this black stuff twice a day, I said, that's it, Noreen. We got to go eat something else. I'm not eating more squid ink. But anyway, so if Bev and I had have known that all you had to do is buy a drink and we could have eaten for nothing, we'd still be there. Anyway, this is our last stop, and we are back to Costa del Sol, just up the road from where Beverly and I were in 1973. This is called Nerja, and again, we were in Marbella, just down, around the corner and down the Mediterranean a bit. Looks the same, whitewash houses. One thing that Nerja had is it had these caves. And there's, you see that little cow or whatever, horned cow there. This is one of the cave paintings that are in these caves. They're Neanderthal cave paintings, older than the ones they found in France. And I thought, oh, how neat's this? Let's go see the cave paintings. And they were having their 60th anniversary of when they were found in 1959. So, oh boy, this is great. So down we go into these caves, and eventually I asked the tour guide, so like, where are these cave paintings? And the guy says, oh, well, we don't show them to tourists. And I'm going, well, what the heck am I here? I want to do cave paintings. But anyway, they did have the largest stalactite, or is it stalagmite? I don't know, in the world. So we did see that. And then, so the rest of the day, we're off to spend at the beach. And this little portico is on a prominent promontory that goes out into the Mediterranean. And it's called the Balconies of Europe. So from the time that there was hardly any tourism going on in Spain, except in Torremolinos, now the British and the Northern Europeans have found the Costa del Sol, and they come here in the millions every year to soak up the sun. So they call this the Balcony of Europe. And here's the beach at the side of the Balconies of Europe. And here's the whitewashed houses, but they're no longer the old ones like Bev and I stayed. These are all new builds. And here's along the promontory there. So anyway, after this, we went back to Madrid and then flew home. But one last thing before I go, and it's this thought. Not only Spain has changed in 46 years. This is me in 1973, and this is me now. And that's it. That's what I got.